Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the STAC Theater Acting Company's Golden Age of Radio Performance. Before we go live, let's meet our outstanding stars, cast of stars. Amanda Petty, Patty Baker, Amy Segali, Stacy Weaver, Tyler Thompson, Rich Schlusser, Dan Spicer, Stephen A. Baxter, Jay Evans, and yours truly, Dennis Kane. Some of our performers are doing double duty tonight as Foley artists. Our Foley sound effect artists, Amanda Petty, Dan Spacek, Patty Baker, our sound effects, lighting, and projection designer, Andy Poston, and our soundboard operator, Deborah Wojcicki. Hold for applause. I'm getting the signal that, I'm glad I said that. I'm getting the signal that we're about ready to go live. When you see the on-air sign light up, please help start our broadcast with a rousing round of applause. Here we go. Ready? Now. Let's do it for real. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, young and old, old and new. Greetings from KAST in Auburn, California, right here in the good old USA. I'm your host, Dennis Kane, and it is our pleasure to bring you your favorite shows, This and Every Night, brought to you by the STAC Theater Acting Company's Golden Age of Radio Players. Tonight, we bring you 3 new stories and a visit from Abbott and Costello. We start out our show tonight with an episode Father Knows Best. Lily for a Lady.
Mother, is Maxwell House really the only coffee in the world?
Well, your father says so, and your father knows best.
Yes, it's Father Knows Best, transcribed in Hollywood, a half-hour visit with your neighbors, the Andersons, brought to you by America's favorite coffee, Maxwell House. The coffee that's always good to the last drop. Come, let us bid the morn awake. Sad winter now declines, and every bird doth choose a mate. Today's St. Valentine's. Ah, yes, the day of love and lovers, St. Valentine's Day. It was quite an event in Springfield this year, especially in a certain white frame house on Maple Street. There, as usual, the day contains its normal quota of confusion. And there, also as usual, it all began with breakfast like this.
Bud, are you sure your father didn't go back to bed?
Yes, ma'am. He was almost finished shaving.
I don't know. Every time I plan anything special for breakfast.
Mommy, is 15 Valentines a lot?
Well,
Who got 15 Valentine?
I'm going to,
How do you know?
because I've got 75 cents and I'm going to buy them.
darling, you don't buy Valentines for yourself.
You don't?
Of course not.
I'm going to.
Happy.
I'm going to get more Valentines than any girl in my whole class.
Of all the girls I ever see, you're the one best, but it's he.
And Shakespeare rolled over and died.
Never mind, Betty.
I ever see. What grammar?
Well, it's poetry. Didn't you ever hear of poetry license?
Oh, good grief. You need a license for that now?
Morning, Daddy.
My dad.
Good morning, Father.
Ah, the gay young Andersons, bright-eyed and cheerful.
Good morning, Tim.
Oh, hello, honey. Getting ready to sally forth into the world for another day of hopovers.
If they aren't burnt to a crisp.
Hopovers? Well, why, we haven't had those for breakfast since, wait a minute. I come popovers on Wednesday.
Is there any law that says we can't?
No, but is it somebody's birthday?
Father, you don't mean to say.
All right, Betty, just eat your breakfast.
But if he doesn't.
I said eat your breakfast.
Jumping creepers.
Our anniversary's in April. Your birthday's in October.
Jim, will you please eat your popovers before they get cold?
I have eaten my last forkful until somebody tells me what today is.
It's February the 14th.
Well, that's more like it. Can I have my coffee, please?
Mother, he still doesn't know.
Of course he does, dear. He's just teasing you. Here you are, Jim.
Ah, thank you, my love. Popovers and coffee. What a wonderful way to start off so auspicious a day as February 14th.
Dad.
The sun is shining, the snow is glistening, the icicles are icing.
Dad.
The coffee is bubbling, the popovers are popping.
Dad.
I seem to hear the strangest noises.
Dad.
All right, bud, it's St. Valentine's Day. Now, what do you want?
It's St. Valentine's Day.
Thank you, H.B. Coltonborn Jr.
Well, I just wanted you to tell you.
I forgot to say you're welcome.
Never mind, dear.
But Daddy said thank you, and Bud didn't say.
The milk, Kathleen.
Why do you have to say you're welcome when you're 9 and when you're 15?
You heard your mother, Kathy. Drink your milk and stop arguing.
Gee whiz, everybody has somebody and all I have is milk.
Father,
Eddie, with all the fuss you've been making around here about the sweetheart ball tonight, how could anybody in his right mind not know what today was?
you mean you knew?
Of course I knew.
Well, if people know what today is, they generally do something about it.
Betty, I wish you'd just eat your breakfast.
Wait a minute, honey. What's this all about?
It isn't anything really, Jim.
Mr. Davis is giving Mrs. Davis an orchid for Valentine, that's all.
She told Mommy this morning
Well,
when she came over to borrow an egg.
And Mr. Phillips is giving one to Mrs. Phillips.
he's giving her an egg?
He's giving her an orchid, a big purple orchid.
And so is Mr. Smith.
That's ridiculous. Why would Mr. Smith want to give an orchid to Mrs. Phillips?
Maybe he likes her.
Well, you better have a better reason than that.
Jim, you're getting the children all confused.
I am. I was sitting here very quietly watching the popovers popping over.
Mother got up an hour earlier this morning just to make a special breakfast for you.
Well, she didn't have to do that. I'd been perfectly happy with
Just because it's St. Valentine's Day.
Is that right, man?
It isn't anything, dear. I just thought you'd like popovers for a change.
Well, thank you, Margaret. I'm very grateful.
Then why don't you buy her an orchid?
Kathy!
Well, that's what everybody needs. Why don't they say it?
Jim, I want you to know I had nothing to do with this.
I know that, honey, but
It's been so long since I've had an orchid, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
just a minute, Margaret. It hasn't been that long. You had an orchid. Well, it wasn't very long ago.
When Kathy was born.
All right. It's only 9 years. Besides, why the big celebration? St. Valentine's Day is for kids.
Excuse me.
Where are you going?
I have to look for my fountain pen.
Well, don't you think you ought to finish your breakfast first?
Oh, I couldn't eat another thing, Mother. I'm full.
I don't know what's gotten into that girl. She doesn't eat enough to keep a bird alive.
That isn't what Billy Smith says.
Never mind, Kathy.
He says she eats like a horse.
Kathy?
I drank my milk.
Well, drink Betty's.
Whiz.
Margaret, you know I love you. If I knew how to make popovers, I'd have Gertie make them for you.
Bud, I can't find my pen.
There's no reason why a couple of grown people...
Just a moment, dear. But Betty can't find her pen. Why don't you go in and help her look for it?
Oh, why do I have to?
But stop arguing and do as you're told.
Holy cow. Everything that gets lost around here, I have to find.
It isn't a question of the orchid, honey. It's the principle of the
If it
thing.
was everything, nobody helped me find it. You'll think it was a seeing high boy or something.
I'm in here.
What's the big idea, Betty? I don't even know what you're... Hey, wait a minute.
Bud, stop making so much noise.
You've got the pen in your hand.
I know it.
Well, then why do I have to come
Will
over?
you stop shouting? We've got to do something about the orchid.
What orchid?
The one Mother isn't going to get.
Look, Betty, if you don't want to make any sense...
Well, you heard Father. He isn't going to buy one.
How do I know?
He practically said so.
Well,
Do you want Mother to be the only woman in the neighborhood without an orchid?
what's the difference?
There's a lot of difference. And if Father won't buy it, we'll have to.
You're crazy. It costs $7.50.
I know fixed for the sweetheart ball.
You said you did.
Well, I don't. So I've got $5. How much have you got?
Oh, now wait a minute, Betty. I've been saving up for months.
How much?
But I have to buy Valentine's presents for 5 girls.
Bud. How much?
Well, $1.75.
That still isn't enough.
Well, it's all I've got, and if you think I'm gonna go out and borrow 75 cents, then like last time?
75 cents.
Kathy!
What are you kids doing out there?
We have to talk to Kathy.
I'll be right in.
I better make it snappy or you'll be late for school.
It'll only take a minute, Father.
What if she? I mean, what if she won't give it to us?
Well, she'll give it to us or else.
I don't know where your pen is, Betty.
Never mind the pen.
Where's your money?
I'm not gonna tell you because if I tell you,
Kathy, we have got to have 75 cents.
I don't care. It's my money, and I'm gonna buy Valentine's, and you don't have any right.
Kathy, this is an emergency.
It is?
It certainly is.
What's an emergency?
An emergency means you have to give us 75 cents.
Well, I won't.
Kathy, I'm giving $5 and Bud's giving $1.75 and
That's coming.
But you didn't tell me.
we'll tell you outside. Come on, Bud.
Okay. Hi, Bud. Dad. Huh?
I don't know what you kids are cooking up, but
We aren't cooking up anything, Father.
Say that I
Goodbye, Father.
You have to hurry up or we'll be late.
but I want to tell
Grab
you.
her coat, Bud. We'll put it on outside.
Okay.
Betty, why don't you,
We'll see you later, Father.
Come on, Kathy.
Stop pulling me. Why do you always have to pull me?
So long, Dad.
Bye now.
I don't know. They get worse every day.
Jim, Ed Davis is here.
Oh, I'll be right in. Make more noise now than they did with their infants. Maybe they get the more trouble they are.
Hi, Jim.
Oh, hello, Ed. What's up?
Oh, Ed wanted me to bring back the eggs she borrowed from Margaret.
Isn't that silly?
What's the big rush?
Well, now she needs a cup of sugar.
Jim, while you and Ed settle the affairs of the world, I'll take the sugar over to Ed.
Oh, Margaret, I'll take it over.
Put your coat on, honey.
It'll only take a minute.
Hey, wait a minute, Margaret.
Won't do any good, Ed. She's gone.
Women. Has Margaret heard about the orchard?
Oh, yes. I was given the full treatment this morning.
Never heard anything so cockeyed in my life. One dizzy character orders an orchid for his wife and the whole neighborhood and has to go from pro.
Well, what do you mean?
Oh, Lucille Hathaway was talking to Joe the florist. This guy calls it, orders an orchid. A $7.50 orchid.
What guy?
Who knows? But Joe told Lucille and she told Elizabeth Smith, and that's all it took. Every husband on the street is getting hooked for an orchid.
Not everybody?
Everybody.
Wow, gosh, Ed.
Well, I'd like to meet the character who started this. You get yours yet?
Well, I better call the florist right now, huh?
Yeah, well, I was talking to Sam Woody, and he says Joe only has 2 or 3 orchids left. I'm going down to get one now. You want to come with me?
No, I think I'll just call him.
No, I wouldn't take any chances. You better come up with an orchid. You're a dead guy.
Okay, Ed, I'll take care of it right away. And thanks for the tip.
Glad to help, Jim. You know how it is. Us husbands have to stick together.
Or get stuck together. Why does everybody have to buy an orchid? They're a bunch of sheep. That's what they are. Leave it to them to find a way to get everything. Hello, Joe? Yeah, this is Jim Anderson. Fine, thanks. Yes, I know. Look, Joe, I know Ed Davis just told me. But look, Joe, if anybody wants to know who bought the first orchid, for crying out loud, don't tell him it was me.
Well, as matters stand now, Father is the only one in the house who knows about that orchid. And so often that's true. The head of the house is the only one to go to for the right answer. For example, ladies, when it comes to coffee, the world's greatest expert is that man of yours. Yes, your husband is the #1 coffee authority. Of course, we have a reputation as experts too. After all, more families buy our Maxwell House coffee than any other brand. But when you pour the coffee, why, your husband is the only expert who matters. And if you want to be rewarded with his warmest smile, just serve him our Maxwell House tomorrow. We're sure he'll be and say,
Best coffee I ever tasted.
yes, that's our promise. He'll say that, or we'll give you your money back. You see, only Maxwell House has the wonderful good to the last drop flavor, a flavor that can only come from our Maxwell House recipe. It's a very special recipe, demanding certain fine coffees blended just so. No wonder then no other coffee tastes like Maxwell House. It's because no other coffee's made like Maxwell House. Tomorrow, serve your husband our Maxwell House coffee. If he doesn't say,
Best coffee ever.
we'll gladly refund every penny you paid. Just send us the can and unused portion. Our address is right on every familiar blue tin. Fair enough? Then tomorrow, serve your expert, your husband, the coffee with the world's most famous flavor, Maxwell House coffee. Always good to the last drop. That's right. Now it's 5 o'clock, and an hour of mystery and excitement. How do I know? Well, I know many things of men who walk by night with danger by their side, of men who walk by eventide with orchids clutched beneath their arms. Ah, yes, Jim, there's a smile on your face and a song in your heart as you stride across the kitchen floor. But how long will this happiness last? You open the refrigerator door and the smile fades, the song disappears. What is it you see, Jim? Crisp and cool between a head of lettuce and an old tired meatloaf. That's right, Jim. It's another orchid.
Now, how did that get there? I told Joe I was going to pick it up. Why would he? Margaret! Try to surprise anybody around here. Honey, Margaret!
Is that you, Father?
No, it's the Iceman.
Mother isn't home yet.
What's that mean? Or the Iceman? Where are you?
We're in the living room, Daddy.
Well, at least that worked out all right. Where's your mother?
She hasn't gotten back from downtown yet.
Daddy, we've got a surprise for you. Guess what?
You burned down the school.
Daddy.
Father, I don't know how to tell you this, but,
Just a minute. Do you know anything about that orchid in the icebox?
well, that's what I was trying to tell you.
We bought it.
You bought an
Huh?
orchid?
Yeah.
What for?
For Mother.
Oh, Betty.
Well, you said you wouldn't, and we didn't want her to be the only mother in Springfield without an orchid.
Betty, I never said I wouldn't.
Why, Father, when we were having breakfast this morning,
I never said I wouldn't buy an orchid. If you must know, I was the first. Never mind, I ordered an orchid for your mother over a week ago.
You did?
Yes, I did.
oh, jumping creepers. And I didn't even have my hair done.
I only got 9 Valentines.
Well, that makes sense. Not to me, but it makes sense, I suppose.
We gave Bud all our money and he bought the orchid for Mother.
Fine, now she can have one for each shoulder.
Father, why didn't you tell us?
Because I didn't think it was any of your business.
What's
the matter with you?
I want my 75 cents back.
Stop that yelling, or I'll give you something to yell about.
Oh, yes, Daddy.
This isn't just a question of the money involved. The two of you, Bud, probably sacrificed a great deal to buy that orchid for your mother. And it was absolutely unnecessary.
And I have to go to the dance looking like an old witch.
Stop worrying about your hair. It looks fine.
We only bought the orchid because we love Mommy.
Well, that's what I mean. Why should you presume that you love her more than I do?
We don't, Father. We just...
But that's just what you said. Father doesn't love mother. It's enough to buy her an orchid, so we'll have to.
never thought of it like that.
Do you think I'd have let your mother down when everybody else was getting an orchid?
No.
Then why didn't you trust me?
Because we're stupid?
No. Because you didn't think, that's all.
Father,
Yes, Betty?
does my hair really look all right?
That's fine. I make a big speech about faith and confidence, and you want to know if your hair is all right.
Daddy,
What is it, Kathy?
I trust you.
That's very nice.
Do you trust me?
As far as I can throw the plane.
Because if you do, Betty took my 75 cents and I'd like to make a deal about my allowance.
Yes, answer the door, and when you come back, we'll sit down and talk about something else.
Okay, what?
Answer the door.
I said I'd like to make a deal, and he said,
Father,
Yes, Betty.
will it help if I say I'm sorry?
How much of this orchid money was yours?
$5.
Well, I guess you suffered enough. Suppose we just forget the whole thing.
Hello, Kathy. Is your father home?
Daddy, it's Mr. Davis.
Oh, come on in, Ed.
Jim, I'm in an awful jam.
Oh, what's the matter?
You don't know what I've been through. I've turned this town upside down. I can't find an orchid.
I thought you were getting one from Joe.
He's sold out. Everyone's sold out. I'm afraid to go home.
Father!
Yes, Betty, I have the same idea. Kathy,
You want me, Daddy?
be a good girl and bring me those 2 boxes in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Father, isn't it wonderful?
Isn't what wonderful?
Now sit down, Ed. Take it easy. Relax.
Relax. Relax, he said. My wife will probably leave for Reno in the morning. He said relax.
Couldn't find any orchids anywhere, huh?
Orchids. Orchid. I'd settle for one. That's all I wanted.
You don't say.
Jim, will you please take that silly-looking grin off your face? You don't seem to understand. I'm in trouble. I can't go home.
Kathy!
I'm coming, Daddy.
Ed, whether you know it or not, we are living in an age of miracles. The skyscraper, the airplane, the horseless carriage,
Jim.
and now, miracle of miracles.
Are these the ones?
There you are, Ed.
What?
Orchids.
You mean real live orchids?
Just ran them up out of a couple of old lampshades. Take your pick.
Jim, I don't know what to say.
Well, suppose you start with, here you are, girls. Here's your $7.50.
I'll give him 10.
Father!
Daddy.
$7.50 will be fine, Ed. Won't it, girls?
Yes, Father.
I'll settle for my 75 cents back.
Jim, I really don't know what to say. You know you saved my life, don't you?
Well, you know how it is. We always like to keep a couple of spare orchids floating around the house. Gives it that homey touch.
Here you go, girls. $7.50. And I'll never be able to thank you enough.
Margaret?
It's me, Dad.
I'm gonna get out of here before you change your mind. Anytime I can do anything for you, Jim, just let me know.
See you later, Ed.
How are you, bud?
Hello, Mr. Davis.
Oh, what a day. What a day.
What's he so excited about?
Oh, he was just... Bud, what's in the box?
The box? Oh, it's an orchid.
What?
Bud!
Didn't you tell me to buy an orchid?
I want my 75 cents back.
Wait a minute. Didn't you put an orchid in the icebox before?
I just got home, remember?
Eddie, you told me that.
Well, I thought that was the orchid we bought.
What was?
The one we just sold to Mr. Davis.
I didn't put any orchid in the icebox. I bought this one from Joe this morning.
There's something very fishy going on around here.
I didn't do anything.
We bought 2 orchids, we sold one, and we still got 2 left. Doesn't make any sense.
Maybe the florist made a mistake?
Yeah, I guess the best thing to do is to call Joe and find out if he knows anything about it.
Won't I get my 75 cents back?
Stop worrying about your 75 cents.
But I need it.
Kathy, leave Father alone. He's having enough trouble.
Hey, do we get our money back?
Wait till we find out.
Boy, wouldn't that be something?
Hello, Joe.
Dad, ask him if we get the money back.
Yeah, just a minute, Joe. Bud,
Yes, Dad?
go away.
Or aren't you going to ask him if he's going to...
I said go away.
How about if I just shut up?
All right. Hello, Joe.
I'll just shut up.
Joe, this is Jim Anderson. Did you send an orchid out to my house? I know I ordered one, but I picked it up myself less than a half an hour ago. I see.
Father, what did he say?
Oh, Betty.
Well, I imagine you must be... Ooh.
What did he say, Father?
Oh, Betty.
Wait a minute, Joe. Betty, just one more minute.
I'm sorry, Father. Go ahead.
Like trying to out-talk a riveting machine. Joe?
I didn't say anything.
But if you don't... No, I was talking to my kids, Joe. Bill Bolter? He didn't get one, huh? Okay, I'll send Bud over with it right away. Not at all, Joe. See you later. Yeah, that takes care care of that.
What did he say, Father?
Joe thinks they made a mistake while he was out to lunch.
Who did?
They did.
Oh,
Bud, take your orchid across the street to the Poulters.
What for?
For Mr. Poulter to give to Mrs. Poulter.
What do I want to do that for?
Because that's what Joe said to do.
And then we get our money back?
Yes.
Oh, hot dog! I'll be back in 2 minutes, Dad.
See if you can't take a little longer, like an hour.
Okay.
Betty, the next time you start anything like this, so help me out.
divorce her?
Happy.
That's exactly what I'll do. I'll divorce her.
You'll divorce who?
Mommy,
Hello, Mother.
Hello, honey. We didn't hear you come in.
I came in the back way. Hello, dear.
Hello, darling.
Who's getting a divorce?
Betty and I.
Oh, well, you've certainly got a nice day for it.
Haven't we, though?
Daddy short the surprise.
Happy.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Betty, she's absolutely right.
Just because I'm the littlest one in the family, everybody thinks I am.
Jim, would you mind telling me what this is all about? I've got to get dinner started.
I'll do better than that. Then tell you, honey. I'll show you what it's all about. There you are.
Jim, did you take that orchid out of the icebox?
Oh, you saw it, huh?
Of course I saw it. Captain, put it back where it was, like a good girl.
Yes, Mommy.
Well, aren't you going to say something?
It'll be absolutely ruined before Betty even has a chance to wear it.
Me?
What's Betty got to do with it?
Why, I thought you knew. That's the orchid Billy Smith bought for Betty to wear to the sweetheart ball.
Oh, no.
Once again, it's breakfast time in Springfield, and once again, we find the Andersons engaged in their favorite occupation. Yep, they're eating again, like this.
Oh, it was wonderful, Mother. Just the most wonderful dance you've ever seen. Oh, may I please have the sugar?
9 Valentines isn't bad, is it, Daddy?
I think it's very good.
And I've still got my 75 cents. That's even better.
Margaret, do you suppose Hetty Green looked anything like Kathy when she was a child?
I wouldn't know, dear.
Before your time?
1 or 2 days. More coffee?
Oh, why, sure.
There you are.
Thank you.
Boy, was Mr. Polar ever excited about the orchid. He gave me a whole $1 for a tip.
What? You didn't take money from Mr. Poulter.
I didn't? I could have sworn I did.
What?
Well, it turned out to be a pretty fine Valentine Day after all, didn't it?
It was wonderful, dear, and I certainly think you showed great originality.
I did, huh?
Mm-hmm. I'll bet that's the biggest box of candy anyone ever got.
May I have the cream, please?
Here you are, Father.
Thank you. Ready or not, we bring you a visit from Lou Costello and Bud Abbott, directed by Rick Schlussel. Woo!
Quiet, you.
The Abbott and Costello program brought to you by Camel, the spirit of popular, properly aged tobaccos. Listen to the rhythm. And that fearless fat little film star who, when he met the famous MGM lion yesterday, calmly looked at the lion in the eye and said, "Hey, Abbott!"
Oh, now there you are, Costello. Now say, who was that beautiful girl you were dancing with last night? She certainly is a peach.
She ain't no peach. She's a fruit salad.
A fruit salad?
Yeah. She's as sour as a lemon, as slippery as a banana, and when I squeezed her, she hit me in the eye like a grapefruit.
Well, she's a lovely girl, Costello. I never saw such a dusky complexion. She's really a deep brunette.
Oh, that ain't her fault, Abbott. She was born in an apartment where they don't allow children, and her folks had to keep her in the dark.
Talk sense, Costello. Now, what is the young lady's name?
Oh, I don't know her name, Abbott. I call her typewriter.
Why do you call her a typewriter?
Because if you don't press her in the right spot, you get terrible words. Ooh. My writer must have had as a grandfather with these jokes.
Well, never mind that. Tell me something about her, Costello. Is she the tender type?
How do I know? I didn't buy it yet.
When I saw that girl last night, she reminded me of my wife. When I married my wife, she was the rage of San Francisco.
Your wife's kisser would throw any city into a rage.
Costello, my wife is a society girl. She came out in March of 1921.
Yeah, and when she saw a shadow, she ducked right in again.
Now, Costello, my wife is the kind of girl that gentlemen speak softly to.
I'd rather have the kind of girl that sailors whistle at.
Costello, you should be ashamed chasing after girls when your fiancée, Tessie Tinfoil, is still in the wax.
Tessie is getting discharged from the army next week, Abbott.
But Tessie has only been in the army a short time now. To get a discharge, she'll need a certain amount of points. Now, does Tessie have enough?
Abbott, are you kidding? Tessie has been decorated twice. She saved the lives of 14 flyers.
Costello, Tessie weighs over 300 pounds. She still saved the lives of 14 flyers. How could a big fat girl like her save the lives of 14 flyers?
Well, she was swimming in the San Diego Harbor, and a B-29 made a forced landing on her stomach.
Now listen, if Tessie is coming home, you should buy her a present, a memento of your love.
That's a good idea, Abbott. Tessie loves mementos, especially the red ones.
Red mementos?
Yeah, she takes a toothpick and gets them right out of the office.
You dummy, those are mementos. I'm talking about mementos. A memento is a token.
Token is what my mother makes pies out of.
Your mother makes pies out of tokens?
Sure. Coconut custard pies. Coconut custard pies.
Costello, you're an imbecile.
I accept your apology.
Look, now, I'm only trying to tell you that you should get Tessie a present. And now tell me, in what month was Tessie born?
December. And she was born, they tell me, under the sink.
Under the sink, now how do you know?
She heard the water broke.
Now we know the birthstone, so why don't you buy Tessie a nice big turquoise?
A nice big turquoise?
Yes.
Well, where am I going to get a big turquoise? I can't even get a small roasted chicken.
You dummy. You get a turquoise in a jewelry store.
They got turquoise in a jewelry store?
Certainly, anybody knows that.
Well, I better tell my mother. She's been knocking herself out standing in the line at the butcher's.
Oh, Costello, I'm trying to tell you to give Tessie something when she comes home. For instance, when my wife came back from her vacation, I gave her a couple of clips.
Shame on you, Abbott. Shame on Bud Abbott. Clipping a poor defenseless woman.
No, I didn't clip her. I gave her 2 clips, one for each ear.
Abbott, are you in the habit of giving your wife a couple of clips every time she comes home?
Oh, no, last summer I gave her a beautiful belt.
Does her mother know about this?
Certainly, I gave her mother a belt, too.
Oh, you're very nice to her family. What did you give a poor old grandfather?
The socks.
You mean you stalked a poor old grandfather?
I gave him a pair of socks.
Oh! Abbott, that did it. I was shocked you saying that you gave your wife a couple of clips, especially when she comes home from vacation. But when you stand here and admit that you belted your wife's mother, and then you had the audacity, oh, I like that word, the audacity to take a couple of socks and a poor old grandfather, you have not only impugned on my good name, but you have cast aspersions on the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals!
Get him out of here!
And now, if you have the time, we bring you Tales of Tomorrow, The Other Now, directed by Rick Schlussel. Tales of Tomorrow, tales beyond human imagination, until they happen. Tales of Tomorrow, story number 4. The Other Now by Murray Leinster. This is your host, O Mentor, saying hello for ABC. Look at your watch. Oh Oh, but don't take it seriously. If it's a few seconds after 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, in California it's 3 hours earlier. In London it's 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. And in Japan it's almost tomorrow afternoon. What time is it right now on the planet Saturn? A silly question? I wonder. The point is, time is a clock with many faces. Your time is not necessarily anyone else's, and what we think of as the present is only relative. Let's prove that thesis with a remarkable tale from Galaxy, the science fiction magazine. The most timely story titled, The Other Now.
My name is Hal Haynes. I was Jimmy Patterson's best friend, which is why he dared tell me this story you're about to hear. I'm speaking into a recording machine, the tape to be played back only after my death, for reasons that'll become obvious as you listen. First, you've got to understand that Jimmy and Jane Patterson loved each other like no two other people I ever met. That's important to the story. It all began about a year after their marriage. They'd been to a party at my apartment and started home about 2 in the morning.
Darling, nothing.
Well, what's so funny?
The way you always stick out your jaw when you're behind the wheel. It's kind of cute.
Now, I resent that. A man is attractive, handsome, virile, compelling, but never cute.
Darling, you're all those things. And cute. Jimmy, that truck in front of us. What's that long pole sticking out behind it?
Looks like a steel girder. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh,
See the red flag?
pass that truck, please.
What's the matter, hon?
I don't like driving behind that thing. It makes me nervous.
All right, here we go. Jake, brace yourself!
What?
Yeah, the truck's stopping short. Air brakes.
Jimmy, we're skidding!
I know, I can't stop.
Jimmy phoned me from the hospital. When I got there, the doctors told me about Jane. Death had been mercifully swift. Jimmy was sitting on a bench in one of the corridors, his face buried in his hands. Jimmy? Jim, it's me.
Did they tell you?
Well, yeah, what can I say?
Oh, Hal, she's gone. She's gone.
No.
It happened so fast. A freak accident. It doesn't make sense.
No. Listen, anything I can do.
1 minute she was beside me alive, and the next minute happened. Why did it have to happen this way? Why couldn't it have been me?
The next 3 months were bad. At first, I feared Jimmy might do something desperate. But soon the torture of being alive while Jane was dead slacked up until, from an intolerable agony, it became a dull, ever-present ache. The worst moment was coming home from work to the empty apartment. So Jimmy arranged always to have the cleaning woman there. It was better than nothing. On the night the thing really began, Jimmy came home from work with the usual hopeless ache in his heart. Putting the key in the lock, he thought if only Jane were there to meet him. If only by some miracle. But there were no miracles. He knew that. He unlocked the front door, opened it, began to walk in, and crashed against the door. It was closed. He'd just opened it, but it was closed. Jimmy's first impression was that his brain was playing tricks on him. Had he really opened that door? It seemed to him that he had, but in his confused state of mind, he couldn't be absolutely sure. He unlocked the door again. Or was it again? Opened it, and walked into the apartment. The cleaning woman, Mrs. Mooney, was in the living room.
Hello, Mrs. Mooney.
Oh, hello, Mr. Patterson. How do you feel today, sir?
Fine, thanks.
You didn't sleep last night, sir.
Of course I did.
When I came in this afternoon, the bed was still made up, just as I left it yesterday.
I fell asleep in the armchair. Please stop checking on me, Mrs. Mooney.
Oh, I don't want you to think of it that way, Mr. Patterson. But you haven't been yourself since the Mrs. Well, what I mean is, I'm worried about you.
There's nothing to worry about. Anyone phone while you've been here?
Mr. Hayes called.
What did he want?
He said he hadn't heard from you in a couple of days. Wants you to call him back, sir.
Thanks. I'll do that. Anything else?
Yes, I found this carton of cigarettes in the Mrs. desk.
Those are Jane's.
Yes, sir.
Must have overlooked them while I cleaned up the desk.
What should I...
I'm gonna throw them out. No, just a second. Put them back in the desk.
All right, sir.
And before you do that, Mrs. Mooney, there's something I want to ask you. Did you hear me come in just now?
Yes, sir.
Well, did you notice if I opened the front door once or twice?
Why would you open the front door twice, sir?
I don't know if I did. That's what I'm trying to find out. Did you hear the door open twice?
Well, I really couldn't say, Mr. Patterson.
Well, think back. Try to remember.
Well, you did open it twice, sir.
Are you sure?
I think so, but maybe I just imagined it. You don't look so good, Mr. Patterson. You ought to take a nap before dinner.
I'm all right.
No, you aren't. I think...
Please, Mrs. Mooney, stop fussing over me. Just leave me alone.
Jimmy took sleeping pills that night. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed of doors that were open when they should have been shut, and shut when they should have been open. During work the next day, the peculiar incident the night before was in the back of his mind, and when he came home that night, he opened the door carefully, wondering if it would be repeated. It wasn't. He hung up his coat and sat down in the armchair. Wearily, he filled his pipe and struck a match to it. As he dropped the stub of the match into the ashtray,
What's this? Cigarette stubs? Jane's brand? Freshly smoked. Mrs. Mooney? Mrs. Mooney!
You want me, sir?
I certainly do. Mrs. Mooney, who gave you permission to smoke my wife's cigarettes?
What's that, sir?
What right have you to smoke my wife's cigarettes?
But I didn't do anything of the sort, Mr. Patterson. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, right here in this ashtray are half a dozen of her. They're gone.
Gone?
Cigarette butts. They were in this ashtray a minute ago. Now they've disappeared.
Couldn't have been nothing in that tray, sir. I emptied all the ashtrays when I came in.
But I saw them. Or did I? What's the matter with me? Or is it me?
was he losing his grip? In a grim sort of way, the thought made Jimmy feel almost cheerful. During the day, work was a godsend. Sometimes he was able to thrust aside for hours the fact that Jane had gone. Now, in the same way, he grappled with the question of his sanity. When Mrs. Mooney left for the evening, he went to the desk where Jane had kept her household accounts. He set the whole thing down on paper, examined it methodically, checking all the facts. He was about to do so when he noticed Jane's diary on top of the desk. For a moment, his mind stopped. His brain reeled.
Jane's diary? What's it doing here? I thought I locked it up in the trunk. I know I locked it up in the trunk.
He sat there, staring at the diary. It couldn't be on the desk. He'd locked it in the trunk, but there it was. With trembling fingers, he thumbed through the pages until he reached the last entry.
September 26th. September 26th, today's date. But that's impossible. How could this have been written today? Jane's dead. And yet that's her handwriting.
Feeling like a sleepwalker in a nightmare, he began to read the entry. And as he scanned the lines, it was as though Jane's voice was in the room.
This morning I went to the cemetery. It's very bad. 3 months since the accident. Time doesn't make it any easier to bear. Oh, Jimmy, I miss you so much.
Jane.
Developing a personal hatred for chance. Chance, luck, whatever it is, it's not an abstraction anymore. It was chance that killed Jimmy. Could have been me instead, or neither of us. Standing over Jimmy's grave today, I realized that. It was almost more than I could stand.
She's alive. She wrote this. She thinks I'm the one that's dead.
Taking a pen, Jimmy began writing desperately under Jane's entry in the diary.
Jane, where are you? I'm not dead. I thought you were. In heaven's name, where are you?
After that, Jimmy's mind went blank. When he came to his senses again, he was sitting in an empty desk. No diary on it, and no pen between his fingers.
Where is it? That diary. Where is it? Oh, I must have dreamed it. Fallen asleep in the chair and dreamed it. No, it was here. I could swear it was here. I wrote an entry underneath James. Or did I? Am I imagining things? I've got to find out. There must be some way to get to the bottom of this.
The next morning, Jimmy bought a small camera with a flashbulb attachment. That night, when he came home from the office, he had the camera ready. He unlocked the door and opened it. Then, before he walked in, he put out his hand, struck wood. The door was still closed. He stepped back, quickly aimed the camera at the door, and snapped the shutter. The glare of the flashbulb blinded him for a moment, but when he was able to see again, the door was open.
That you, Mr. Patterson?
Yes, it's me.
I thought I heard something.
I was just taking a picture.
Picture?
Look, Mrs. Mooney, are you finished with your work?
I thought I'd just get the laundry together and take it out with me.
Let that go until tomorrow. Good night, Mrs. Mooney.
Jimmy waited impatiently until the cleaning woman was gone. Then he moved the film in the camera and put in a new flashbulb. Walking to the desk, he hardly dared to hope the diary would be there again, but there it was, open, with a ruler across the pages to keep it so. He saw yesterday's entry in his own message. Beyond that was more writing in Jane's hand.
Jimmy, darling, when I opened the diary today, I found a message from you, as though you were alive. I know that can't be it. It's all imaginary wish fulfillment, and I'm crazy to answer you, but please, darling, if I'm sane and you are alive somewhere, tell me where you are.
With all his being, Jimmy wanted to write his reply, but he was afraid to spend the additional time. He aimed the camera at the diary and pressed the shutter button for the second time.
The diary? It disappeared again. Where did it go to? Where did it come from in the first place? What's happening here? Wherever that diary is, that's where Jane is. I've got to find her.
That's the story Jimmy told me. Now, I'm a lawyer, trained to take testimony. I mention that fact because I want it understood that I've not colored this story in any way. I've told it exactly as Jimmy told it to me, flatly and baldly, without any attempt to make it sound reasonable. As Jimmy said,
Well, that's it, Hal. That's exactly how it all happened.
but look here, it's impossible.
Now, I don't blame you for feeling that way about it. I'd say the same thing, if I didn't have the evidence to the contrary.
Evidence? What do you mean, those photographs?
That's right.
Let me have a look at them.
Sure, there's the first one, the shot of the door. It looks like a double exposure, doesn't it?
You've got two doors here, nearly at right angles, both hung from the same door frame.
Now, here's the second shot. If you look close, you may be able to read Jane's handwriting on the page of the diary.
Yeah. Jimmy, darling, when I opened the diary today, I found a message from you as though you were alive.
Well, Hal, do you still say it's impossible?
Yes.
But how?
Jim, I'm your friend. You believe that, don't you?
Sure I do. But you can't.
There's a perfectly logical explanation for these incidents. Now, that's not a pleasant explanation, but the only one that makes any sense. Now, that door opening and closing, Jane's cigarettes in the ashtray, you saw it all because you wanted to see it. You made it up. Not consciously, but out of your desperation. Now, you had to believe that somehow, somewhere, Jane is still alive.
I do believe that, Hal.
Man, you can't just see that you're kidding yourself.
Well, if so, how do you explain the photograph of the door?
Trick photography. You covered half the film and then exposed it with the door closed. And then you exposed the other half of the film with the door open.
Maybe an expert photographer could do that, but I never even owned a camera until yesterday.
Look, you followed directions when you took those shots, didn't you?
Yes?
Well, then you must have been following directions when you took that trick shot of the door.
Okay, but how do you explain the second photograph? The one with Jane's handwriting. Now, you were Jane's lawyer. You'd recognize her handwriting, wouldn't you?
I suppose so.
Look at that photograph. Isn't that Jane's handwriting?
Yeah, it looks like hers, but it could be a forgery.
Forgery? But who would want a forgery?
You would, Jim.
I would?
That's right. Now, I had a client once, a girl. She accused a man of beating her up. She was absolutely sincere. She really believed it. But her own family admitted she'd made the marks on herself. And the doctors agreed that she'd unconsciously blotted the memory of doing it out of her mind afterwards.
You think I forged all this unconsciously?
Well, whatever possibility is there?
Remember the accident happened? Now, we came up behind that truck. When we skidded into it, the girder could have hit me, or Jane, or neither of us.
What does that prove?
It was pure chance that Jane was hit. It could have been me. If it had been me, Jane would be the one living in the apartment. She might very well have written that entry in the diary, isn't that so?
Well, what's the point?
The point is this. There are a lot of possible futures. When today was in the future, there were a lot of possible todays. The present moment is only one of any number of presents that might have been. Now, that night, before the girder came through our windshield, there were three possibilities. One in which I was hit, one in which neither one of us was hit, and one in which... Well, do you see what I'm getting at, Hal?
Are you really suggesting that there's more than one present? That in some other present, Jane's alive and that you're the one who's dead?
That's it, Hal. Some other dimension in time or space through which Jane and I have managed to communicate.
But how?
Well, it's beyond me, but there must be some scientific explanation.
Oh, Jim, you aren't serious.
Why not? Before the atomic bomb exploded, all reasonable people said atomic energy was preposterous. Every new discovery, every new step forward is preposterous until it happens.
I couldn't shake Jimmy's arguments. After he left, I tried to decide on some course of action. Treat him as insane? But he was my friend. Besides, his delusion wasn't dangerous, not even to himself. I decided to wait for developments. One evening, about a week later, Jimmy and I had dinner together. He seemed to be in good spirits. He looked over the menu.
What are you going to order, Hal?
Oh, a steak.
Me too. What's new, counselor?
Oh, I was about to ask you the same. Have you had any more communication with Jane?
Oh, sure. We write each other notes every night. And, by the way, I was right. Hal, Jane thinks there is more than one present. Now, in the present I exist in, Jane was killed. But in her present, I'm the one that's dead.
Well, let's not get into that again.
I don't mind talking about it. Now that I know Jane's alive, life is bearable. Matter of fact, there's only one drawback.
Only one drawback, huh? Oh, what's that?
Well, now that Jane and I have found each other, we'd like to get together. Someday we hope to be able to bridge that gap.
Well, isn't that rather far-fetched?
No. Sometimes when Jane and I are writing notes to each other, both of us can feel the barrier between us wearing thin. Once it seemed to me that we actually touched hands, but I wasn't sure.
Jim. Oh, Jim.
What's the matter?
Nothing. Just Go on with what you were saying. I let it go on, describing what he wrote to Jane and what she wrote to him, and how they both yearned for the time when the barrier between them would disappear and they'd be together again. That continued for several weeks. And one night, as we were sitting in the park,
Hal, remember what I told you about the barrier-wearing thing?
sure, yeah.
Well, Jane and I, we're pretty close now. I'm almost certain I saw her in the living room last night.
Jimmy,
Disappeared before I could get to her. If only I could put my hands on her. If I could touch her just once.
Jim, you've got to stop this.
What?
Do something about these hallucinations.
Now, hold on, Hal.
Don't you see they're progressive? It started with seeing notes and cigarette butts, and now you're seeing people.
You trying to tell me I'm losing my mind?
No, but I think you ought to have to talk with a psychiatrist or something. Get the proper treatment, those hallucinations would just disappear. But if you don't get help, this...
I don't need any help. There's nothing wrong with me. My contacts with Jane are not hallucinations. And I can prove it.
How?
Look, Hal, didn't you have a near accident on the parkway last night? Didn't a car coming around a curve on the wrong side of the road almost smash head-on into you?
What? Yes, it did. I almost went into the ditch trying to get away from it. How did you know that?
Jane told me.
Jane?
She said that in her time channel, a crash killed Tony Shields.
You mean Tony Shields was the driver of the other car?
That's what Jane says.
But that's impossible!
Well, there. Jane doesn't lie, Hal. Why don't you check with Tony?
Hello?
Is that you, Tony?
Yes.
Look, this is Hal Haynes. Look, Tony, there's a little thing that's been bothering me. I'd like to ask you about it. Were you driving your car on the parkway last night?
Yeah, I was.
You sure it was last night?
Well, sure, I'm sure. Why? Now, what's up, Al?
Well, did you almost run into another car coming around that curve near Hawthorne?
Why, that's right. Say, how'd you know that? Al? You still on the line? Did you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. I was the driver of the other car, Tony.
Well, I'll be hanged. Talk about a small world. Say, Hal, I owe you an apology. I was on the wrong side of the road. Must have scared you half to death.
Yeah, you certainly did.
Well, I'm sorry, Hal, but there's one thing I don't get. It's pretty dark out last night. How did you recognize me?
Well, I wasn't quite sure that's why I phoned. I hung up feeling dizzy. Jane had told the truth, but Jane was dead. But if she was dead, how did she know about Tony Shields and what happened on the parkway? It made no sense. No sense at all. Unless Jane actually existed in some other level or dimension. But that was nonsense. Sheer nonsense. Still, I had to talk to Jimmy. I dialed his number. The phone rang a number of times. I was about to give up.
Hello?
Jim, this is Hal. I gotta talk to you.
Not now. I'm very busy.
But this is important. I just spoke to Tony.
Please, Hal, hang up.
All right, I'm coming over to your place.
No, you can't do that. I don't want you here now. Hal, Jane and I are very close. The barrier's getting thin. Paper thin. We've touched each other again.
When did this happen?
Just now, before you phoned. We're hoping and praying that the time barrier is about to break.
But it can't. What would happen if you turned up where she is, or if she turned up here?
I don't know, but we'd be together, and that's all we care about.
Oh, but Jim, listen to me.
Shut up, Hal. She's here.
What?
Oh, she's come through the barrier. Here in this room. I see her. Jane, is that really you?
Who else would it be? Hello, darling.
Jane!
It's Jimmy.
Jimmy!
He'd hung up on me. I dialed his number again. The phone rang and rang, no answer. I gave up in trying to figure it out. That woman's voice I heard over the phone. Had I actually heard it? Was it Jane? Or was I becoming affected myself? I had to know. I went to Jimmy's apartment. I rang the bell. Kept ringing and ringing. No one answered. I tried to open the front door. It was locked. Back door was locked too. The windows were shuttered. There was no way to get in. I tried to phone Jimmy the next morning. No answer. I called his office at noon. He hadn't been there. Finally, I went to the police and talked to Detective Thatcher. Thatcher and a couple patrolmen went to the apartment. They forced the front door, got into the place, searched it, and found nothing. I was in the living room smoking a hopeless cigarette when Thatcher came to me.
All right, Mr. Haynes, let's have it.
Have what?
This is a joke now, ain't it?
Certainly not.
Now look, mister, you tell us you're worried about your friend. We come here and find every door and window locked from the inside. Nobody here, nothing.
Well, what's the gag?
Well, how did he get out of the apartment and still leave all the doors and windows locked from the inside? He didn't disappear into thin air, did he?
What could I say? That Jimmy had escaped into the other now? That he was alive on some other level or dimension of existence as yet unknown to us? That sure would have taken me straight down to the psychiatric ward. I said nothing. The police dragged ponds and rivers for Jimmy's body, put out missing person bulletins and so forth. Eventually, it was recorded that Jimmy left town, and everybody accepted that obvious explanation. I'm the only one who knows what actually happened to Jimmy Patterson. So I'm setting this down for the record, to be placed in my safe deposit vault and opened only after my death. You can't blame me. Would you care to spend the rest of your life in a straitjacket?
All right, well, welcome back. But before we bring you the last story of the night, Dennis Kane, right here behind me. Just back from his triumphant tour at the Copacabana, Carnegie Hall, he'd like to share a Valentine's Day song to let you know just how much STAC appreciates you. Here's Dennis with more. begin Valentine's Day.
It's time for my favorite husband. Yes, it's the new gay family series. Liz and George Cooper, two people who live together and like it. And now, let's look in on the Coopers. It's 3 days before Valentine's Day. Well, she's been hinting about it all morning, but George doesn't seem to notice. And now, at breakfast, Liz is making one last try by arranging her toast crust in the form of a heart.
George? Hey, George? George, look at my plate.
Oh yeah, you should eat those crusts, Liz. They're good for your teeth.
That's my romantic husband. George, didn't you know what shape they're in?
Huh? Oh, a triangle.
No.
A pumpkin.
No. George, when two people are in love and are going to get married, what does it affect the most?
Oh, don't tell me that's a pocketbook.
No, it's a heart. Doesn't that remind you of anything?
Oh, yes, I gotta take my liver pills.
Why don't you go read your paper? I was trying to remind you that Valentine's Day is coming up.
Oh, that's it? You don't have to remind me.
I didn't.
No, every ad in the newspaper is full of it. What a racket.
It's not a racket. It's a wonderful romantic holiday, and I like it.
You know how it started?
Well, St. Valentine's was a... No, I don't. Do you?
Well, it just so happens that I do. It seems that years ago there were two kindly old gentlemen who thought love was so wonderful that they set aside a day to honor all sweethearts and lovers, and they called it St. Valentine's Day.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Who were they?
A candy maker and a florist.
Oh, George, I suppose you think a department store owner invented mothers so they could have Mother's Day.
You know, you might be right.
Well, St. Valentine's Day doesn't just mean candy and flowers. It's the spirit of loving that counts. If you really love someone enough, they'll know without any presents.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Liz, I love you.
You mean no presents?
No, I love you too much.
But George, what's Valentine's Day without candy and flowers?
I thought so.
You know the real reason I like Valentine's Day?
Yeah?
Because it's just such a good excuse to be all mushy and gushy about you.
Yeah? Well, what's your excuse for the other 364 days? You're mushy all the time.
Yeah, but on Valentine's Day I can be mushy and loud. I love you, George!
Liz, keep quiet!
I love you, George!
Liz, stop. What about Katie?
Katie loves you too, George!
Oh, what about the lady next door?
What about the lady next door?
Well, she might hear you. No, simmer down.
All right, I'll be quiet. I love you, George.
That's better.
Do you love me, George?
Yes, I do.
I'm glad to hear that, George.
Anybody want more coffee?
Oh, thanks, Katie.
No, thanks.
What are we whispering about?
Well, it was just a joke, Katie. We were kidding about Valentine's Day.
Kidding? You should never joke about Valentine's Day. Oh, it's a beautiful occasion.
Why, Katie, I think you've got a boyfriend.
Well, I have been working on a Valentine poem. And I'm going to give it
To whom?
I'm going to give it to...
Is that his first name or his last name?
Oh, Mrs. Cooper. It's for Mr. Dabney, the butcher.
Oh, old heavy thumb.
Is the butcher your boyfriend, Katie?
Well, sort of.
Ah, that explains why we've been able to cut the steaks lately.
Well, he isn't exactly my boyfriend, but I've always sort of liked him.
Well, you could do worse than Mr. Dabney. He's quite attractive and a very good butcher.
Well, some people may have better beef, but his liver is good, and no one has oxtail and pig's feet like his.
Say, what's it cost to see him?
I do have a problem, though, Mrs. Cooper. I haven't got the nerve to give Mr. Dabney the Valentine I wrote to him. Would you go shopping with me today and give it to him for me?
Why, sure, Katie. Anything to help out romance.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Cooper. I'll go finish it.
Liz, are you going to start playing Cupid again? Now, you know what happened the
Now,
last...
George, what could happen from handing him a Valentine for Katie? I'll not only help out the romance, but he'll give us better meat. This isn't just an affair of the heart. There are a couple of stomachs mixed up in this, too.
There he is, Mrs. Cooper.
Well, give me the Valentine. I'll hand it to him.
Okay, here.
What have you got on this, Katie?
Well, I wanted to send it with an odor he'd like.
It's all soggy. Would you do soak it in perfume?
No, bacon grease.
Well, that's romantic. Well, give it to me.
Okay, I'll be watching from the grocery department.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Dabney.
Hi, Miss Cooper.
How are things in the meat market?
Fine, Miss Cooper. What can I do for you today?
Well, I didn't come to buy anything today, Mr. Dabney. I'm here on sort of a personal matter. I happen to know, one of your customers thinks you're, rather nice.
No.
Yes. She's been too bashful to tell you, but, since it's almost Valentine's Day, she wants you to know she likes you a lot.
You know something, Miss Cooper?
What?
I like you a lot, too.
Now, wait a minute. I'm not the one.
Still bashful, eh? Oh, you little minx.
Now, just a second, Mr. Dabney. I happen to be speaking for someone else.
That's what what's that you're hiding behind your back?
Oh, how did I get mixed up in all this? Here, this'll straighten things out. It's a Valentine.
Oh, Miss Cooper, I feel like such a hero. I don't have one for you.
Now stop this nonsense.
Now, wait a minute. I'll get you a heart-shaped piece of salami.
Look, just read the Valentine and you'll see what I'm trying to tell you.
All right, Liz. It looks so beautiful. Oh, and how did you know my favorite aroma, Swiss Premium?
Read the Valentine.
All right. If you'll be mine, then I'll be thine. You set my heart a quiver. Say you'll be my Valentine and send 2 pounds of liver.
Well, that's a practical thought.
Oh, Miss Cooper, this is touching. Did you write this all by your little self?
For the last time, no. Look at the signature.
Well, it's signed, your bashful redhead.
Oh, no! Katie! Oh, she's gone.
Oh, don't you try to
No,
pretend.
you stay there.
Oh.
You stay right behind that counter.
Oh, come here, you bashful redhead.
Now, you listen to me. Katie has red hair, too. We are both redheads. She's the one for you.
Listen, 2 houses may have red roofs, but you don't pick the one with sagging foundations.
Well, it's too bad your fish isn't as fresh as you are.
Oh, don't try to fight this thing, my little tenderloin. It's bigger than both of you.
Now stop this, Mr. Dabney. What about Katie?
She's bigger than both of us, too. Oh, Miss Cooper, I've admired you for years. Each little lamb chop you brought and bought. I personally put the pants on it. I feel as though part of me belongs to you.
So do I.
You feel as though part of me belongs to you?
Yes, your thumb. I've paid for it often enough.
Oh.
Goodbye, Mr. Dabney. Oh, it was simply awful, Katie. He came right out of his store and followed me down the block. We'll just have to stop trading there. I could never face that Mr. Dabney again.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Cooper. I shouldn't have gotten panicky and run away.
Well, I'm sorry it ruined your romance.
Oh, I'll get over it in time. I have a date with the milkman tonight.
Well, that's good. Now we're going to get tough meat again. It'll be nice to have fresh eggs.
I left his Valentine in an empty milk bottle.
Well, that's romantic. What did it say?
I said, I love you, dear. Don't be surprised. Leave 2 quarts of homogenized.
Uh-huh. Well, listen, Edgar Guest, do me a favor, will you? I made a check out for Mr. Dabney, and I wish you'd go out and mail it. The sooner I sever connections with that wolf, the better.
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Here, mail this one too. It's a Valentine.
Why, Mrs. Cooper, who are you sending a Valentine to?
To George, of course. I thought it'd be sort of fun for him to get one at the bank. It's a copy of our first Valentine I ever sent to him when I was only 16 years old. Oh, here you are, Katie. Better hurry. They pick up the mail soon.
Oh, all right. I'll get my coat and go right away.
Better wear your gloves. That Valentine's pretty hot.
Hi, Liz.
George, what are you doing home in the middle of the afternoon?
No,
You've been fired.
No,
You quit.
No.
You're sick.
No, I feel
The
fine.
bank burned down.
No.
Well, that's that just like a man comes home early and won't give you a word of explanation.
Well, give me a chance. Let me get in the house. You talk so much the breeze keeps blowing me back out the door.
All right, come on in.
I'm going to Chicago for a couple of days on business, and I have to pack and catch the 4 o'clock train.
Oh, good. I'll go with you.
Oh, sorry, honey. Mr. Attenberry has a new rule. No wives along on business trips.
Well, he took his wife along on his last trip.
That's when he made the new rule.
Well, I'll go pack for you. Oh, wait a minute, George. You'll be back by Monday, won't you?
No.
Oh, dear. We'll see you in a minute, George.
Hey, where are you going?
Down to the mailbox. I have to see a man about a letter. Katie! Katie!
What's the matter, Mrs. Cooper?
Did you mail those letters yet?
Yes?
Oh, darn it. Has the mailman collected them?
No, I don't. Oh, there. He's just opening the mailbox now.
You go home, Katie. I'll be back in a few minutes.
All right, Mrs. Cooper.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
Chief Chair, I've never seen you before in my life. You really want to know? I feel rot. My rheumatism's acting up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
Are you, picking up the mail?
Now, I'm a Confederate soldier, and these are messages for General Lee.
Well, you don't have to get nasty about it.
What do you got on your mind, young lady?
It's very simple. There's a letter in that box that I want.
Oh, tampering with the mail, eh?
No, I wrote it myself. That's my letter, the blue one on the top of the pile.
Take your hands off that letter.
But it's mine, see? It's addressed to my husband, and there's my name in the corner. Liz Cooper, see?
Prove it.
Well, look at the initials on my purse. LC.
Oh, you gotta have better proof than initials on a purse.
Oh, here's a snapshot.
What about it?
Well, see, it's me.
Let me see. Oh, by golly, it is you. Well, that's proven. Oh, wait a minute. You can't trick me like that.
Look, the flap isn't open on very tight. Look inside and I'll tell you what's in it.
Well, I'll just peek in here and see.
It's a Valentine I sent to my husband.
Valentine, eh?
Yes,
Don't look like it. Aha! Just as I thought. Trying to rob the United States mail. Young lady, you could go to the penitentiary for this.
What?
There's no Valentine in this envelope at all.
There isn't?
No, it's a check made out to Mr. Dabney, the butcher.
Oh, good heavens. That means Mr. Dabney is going to get the Valentine I sent to George. Oh, quick. Look for another letter made out to Mr. Dabney.
Oh, no. These letters are going on their way. Legal.
Liz mailed a Valentine to George, but she got it in the wrong envelope, and it's going to Mr. Dabney, the butcher, who already mistakenly thinks that Liz is in love with him. Well, It's early the next morning, and Liz is at Mr. Dabney's, waiting to intercept the letter when it comes. In order to make it look like strictly business, Liz has been making purchases every few minutes.
Mr. Dabney, I think I better have 2 more pork chops, please.
Miss Cooper, you already bought a roast, 2 pounds of bacon, 3 steaks, 4 lamb chops, 5 veal cutlets, and some liverwurst. I got an idea.
What's that?
You now have more meat than I do. Why don't you start selling it back to me?
Never mind the attempt at humor, Mr. Dabney. By the way, when does your, mailman get here?
Look, Miss Cooper. Red. You're not fooling anybody, pretending to buy meat, making small talk about the mailman, all because you want to be near me. Come on, admit it.
Mr. Dabney, I don't like you. I don't like your looks. I don't like your manner. And I think you're completely revolting.
Well, that's right. Make love to me.
Oh, thank goodness. Here comes the mailman.
Morning, Mr. Dabney. Here's a letter for you.
I'll take that.
Oh, it's you again. Young lady, you must curb this impulse to grab every blue envelope you see.
That letter's for me.
But it's mine. I wrote it. It's got my name on it. There's a Valentine inside.
That's the same story she told me yesterday.
Miss Cooper, you sent me another Valentine.
I have not. It's all a mistake.
That's the same story she told me yesterday.
I don't think she's got all her buttons. Mr. Dabney, here's your letter.
Over my dead body.
Hey, give me that letter. Come back here. Oh my goodness, help, police! She just held up the United States mail!
Now, don't fret, Mrs. Cooper. Everything's going to be all right.
But Katie, how will I ever tell George I was arrested for robbing the United States mail? And that he has to appear in court with me tomorrow.
It won't be easy.
Well, anyway, at least this one time I'll have an answer for George when he says, "What's new?"
Here he comes. Good luck.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, dear.
Well, what's new?
I'm glad you asked that. I've been sent to Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Liz, you joined a pyramid club.
No, let me explain, George. You see, I sent a letter to the butcher by Valentine by mistake, and since it was already mailed, he wouldn't give it back to me.
The butcher?
No, the mailman. So I waited at the butcher shop until he got there, but when I grabbed the Valentine, he called the police.
The mailman?
No, the butcher. And I tried to explain that it was all a mistake, but he wouldn't listen.
Mailman or the butcher?
The police. Then we all had to go down to the police court, and he said it was a federal offense, and I ought to be ashamed.
The mailman, the butcher, or the policeman?
The judge. Now, do you understand, George?
Perfectly. The butcher sent the mailman a mushy Valentine, and the judge will send you to prison if I don't marry the policeman. What's going on here?
Keep calm, George. Look, they'll drop the charges if you and I appear in domestic relations court tomorrow.
Domestic relations?
I'm a victim of circumstantial evidence, George. The judge wants to make up his mind.
About what?
Whether I should stay with you or marry Mr. Dabney.
Oh, no!
All right. The domestic relations court will come to order. Now, Mr. Cooper, if you and Mrs. Cooper will sit on this side of the table.
All right, George Skinner. But I tell you, there's really...
Please! And you, Mr. Dabney, over here.
Okay, Judge. Hiya, Red.
Oh, drop dead.
What does he mean, red?
Please, Mr. Cooper, we must control our feelings. Now, I have studied all of the facts in this case, kindly supplied to me by Mr. Dabney.
Great.
And before we start, I want you all to realize that there is no problem too big to solve. Into every life a little ray must fall. Every cloud must have a silver lining, and it always is darkest before the dawn.
Well, now that we've had the weather report, let's get on with the case.
Please, Mrs. Cooper, I want to start this hearing with an open mind, bearing no prejudice towards either party.
Uh-huh.
Now, when did you first realize you were in love with Mr. Dabney?
Wait a minute. I am not in love with Mr. Dabney.
Ah! She finds me irresistible. She wrote me 2 Valentines. She hung around the store all morning.
That wasn't because I'm in love with you. I was waiting for the mailman.
Please! one grinding amour at a time.
Look, Judge, this is all a mix-up. I know the whole thing, how the whole thing...
Please, Mr. Cooper. No tears. Don't talk about it if it hurts. Let me review it for you. I'll recreate the scene. You, Mrs. Cooper, the bored, indifferent housewife, tired of your drab, humdrum life, just waiting for an opportunity to break away from it all. And then one day, your husband announces he must leave town, and you realize this is your chance, your opportunity to escape from this colorless, unimaginative man.
Now, just a minute.
Oh, stop, George. I want to see how this turns out.
This is a lot of nonsense. There's no basis for this whole business.
Are you forgetting this Valentine your wife wrote to her lover?
No, she wrote that to me.
Oh, Mr. Cooper, you are a hard loser. Mrs. Cooper, I suggest you read the Valentine.
All right. Dear sweetheart.
That's me.
That's me.
Please. The way this woman operates, it could be me. Continue, Mrs. Cooper.
Thank you. Dear sweetheart, I'm under your spell. I love you more than tongue can tell.
Tongue. 59 cents a pound.
A good point, Mr. Dabney. Continue, Mrs. Cooper.
Thank you. My lover, I have this to say. I care for you in the very worst way.
That ought to prove it. Lover's worst.
No, that's just a coincidence. She wrote this to her husband, not to the butcher.
I must say, she writes a Valentine with a lot of meat in it. Continue.
My love for you is not phony. This Valentine is... no baloney.
That proves it.
It certainly does.
Well, George, it's been nice knowing you. If you ever need any meat, come and see us.
Now, just a minute. You're not going to get away with this. I love Liz. I've been married to her for 10 years, and no judge or butcher or anyone else in this world is going to take her away from me without a fight.
Why, George!
You understand?
I'll now hand down my decision. I award the custody of Mrs. Cooper to Mr. Cooper.
Hooray! You got my custody!
What's the big idea, Judge?
Well, Mr. Dabney, I think Mrs. Cooper is in love with you, but we must think of Mr. Cooper. When I give a man a chance to get rid of his wife after 10 years of marriage and he doesn't take it, he's in a bad shape. He needs someone to look after him. Case dismissed.
Liz, I hope this will be a lesson to you. Now see what can happen when you start messing around in other people's affairs?
Yes, George.
Now this might really have gotten nasty and gotten spread all over the papers.
Oh, wouldn't that have been terrible?
Be quiet, please. I must have quiet. You have been listening to your daily radio session in kindly Judge Skinner's Domestic Relations Court. With us today were Mr. and Mrs. Cooper.
Oh no, George, the whole thing's been on the air!
Thank you for being here tonight. Please join us on March 9th for another edition of STAC's Golden Age of Radio Performances, right here at the First Congregational Church. Good night and travel safely.